Hey there, gamer. Welcome to D6 Damage. Today I'm counting down my top 7 favorite playable races in Pathfinder. Starting off at number 7 are humans. Now, I tend to favor the more graceful, prettier races, but hey, you can't go wrong with this good old-fashioned Swiss Army knife of a race, now can ya? Humans can do just about anything. They're very versatile, very flexible. They get that all-important bonus feat at first level, and human fighters are ridiculous with the number of feats that they get. Also, with the human-exclusive feat Racial Heritage, you can get racial traits and feats from other races, which is awesome. You'll get tons of skill points, so you'll always have at least a little something you can do, even if you're doing a low-skill class like Fighter. And that all-important +2 to anything you want can be really helpful. Next up at number 6 are the Elves. Yes, the classic Lord of the Rings elves. Gotta love them. In the game of Pathfinder, elves receive a +2 to dexterity, a +2 to intelligence, and a -2 to constitution. So they're smart and they're quick, but they're not too tough. Now, if you're playing an elf, you might not want to worry about the favored class bonuses you get and put that extra point into health, because you're probably going to need it. Now, elves can get an interesting alternate racial trait called Dream Speaker. This increases the DC of any sleep-based spell they cast by 1. So this is a good option if you're playing a witch and you want to take the sleep hex, in addition to spell focus enchantment, which can really make sleep hard to resist. Elves do get a pretty cool favored class bonus option for druids, which lets you add +1/3 of a point to your natural armor when you're in wild shape. By the end, you'll get a +6 to your natural armor. So that's pretty tough. There's also a really cool druid archetype for elves called a tree singer. It's cool because you get a plant creature as your animal companion and you can turn into a plant. So it's got a really nice nature-y feel that I like. Now, one type of elf that I've really wanted to play, but I don't play 4th edition, so I'm kind of tempted to give it a shot just for that, are the Eladrin. They're basically elves from the Feywild, and hey, I can't say no to that, now can I? Some classes that I think work really well with elves are the Investigator hybrid class, the Witch class, which I kind of already mentioned, the Arcanist. That's the combination sorcerer-wizard hybrid class. You could be an elf monk if you want like the most ridiculous will saves ever, or alchemist is another good choice for an elf. Although I'm not really into that one, it just doesn't work thematically for me. But hey, that's just me. Number 5, the Undine. I apologize if I'm not saying any of these names right, by the way. The Undine are people with a lot of water elemental power in them. They receive a +2 to dex, a +2 to wisdom, and a -2 to strength. Now, because I kind of like characters with a connection to the Fae, I really like the alternate Undine racial trait called Naiad Fascination. This basically gives you the Fae-like ability to fascinate humanoid creatures around you, in a radius of 20 feet. Now, it's got a couple of problems because the save against this ability is tied to your charisma modifier, and Undines get their bonus to wisdom. So you're going to need to be distributing your points in kind of a less than optimal way, in my opinion. But it's really good for RP, in my opinion. The favored class options for the Undine aren't great, so I'd recommend putting that extra point into either skill or health, kind of depending on what you're going for. Now let me say the Water Singer racial archetype for the Undine is really cool. If you want to be one of the Avatar waterbenders, this is pretty much the way you'll want to do it. Other really good classes for Undine are Cleric, because they get that +2 to wisdom. I would probably use them more for druids, though. And of course, you could do monk or ranger. Number 4, Aasimar. Or Aasimar, I'm not really sure how you say it. But here's one thing I do know. If you want to just grief the heck out of any undead you come across, an Aasimar will do it for you. Aasimar get a +2 to wisdom and a +2 to charisma. Aasimar are basically people with a lot of good aligned outsider in their heritage. These guys are basically part angel people. And one of my favorite alternate racial traits that they get is this thing called Deathless Spirit. This gives you a +5 to negative energy resistance. So that means you're going to be taking 5 less damage from channel negative energy, and even better, a lot of the nastier abilities that undead have, things like energy drain or level drain, are negative energy effects. So that shadow that's doing strength damage, unless he's rolling a 6 on his d6, he's not doing anything to you. And even then, he's just doing 1 point of strength damage. Also, you get a +2 against death effects. The Aasimar also gets some really awesome racial traits, like angel wings, which are pretty much exactly like you'd think. You get a pair of feathery wings and you can fly around at your base land speed. Another interesting ability is called Angelic Flesh. Basically, with this trait, you're taking a -2 to disguise and a -2 to stealth, but your skin gets a nifty sort of metallic sheen to it, and you get a number of bonuses. Like, I know if you take the one for iron, your natural weapons like your punches are treated as cold iron for overcoming damage resistance. So, neat ability. Aasimar can also cast Daylight as a spell-like ability, so you can really be a pain in a vampire's side if you want to be. Good classes for Aasimar are Paladin, I mean, it's practically tailor-made. Cleric is good, Ranger is good, Monk would be good, especially because you would get ridiculous fly speeds, because monks can move so fast. And if you really want to go hunting for undead, I would recommend a multi-class Cleric Ranger, with undead as your favorite enemy. Number 3, Merfolk. If you want a magic damage-dealing powerhouse, Merfolk are my personal choice. They get a +2 to Dexterity, +2 to Constitution, and a +2 to Charisma. But they have the significant handicap of not having feet. But don't worry, there are ways around that. One of them is the alternate racial trait called Flat Tail, which lets you move around kind of like a big snake. It gives you a base land speed of 15. That's 3 squares. Merfolk also get a +2 to natural armor. So let me tell you about the Merfolk Dragon Disciple. Now with one of these, Davy Jones' locker is going to need a waiting list. Start off with your favorite class as a sorcerer, and take the Draconic Bloodline. By level 3, you'll have +1 to your natural armor, that'll give you a total of 3, and Dragon Disciple adds like 3 more to your natural armor, so you'll have a natural armor of like 6. And then you can just magically buff the heck out of yourself with shield and mage armor. So yeah, Dragon Disciple Mermaid, very intense, does a lot of damage, incredibly armored, a ton of fun. Number 2, Sylphs. Sylphs are kind of like the Undine, but instead of water elemental heritage, they have air elemental heritage. Although personally, if it were me, I would kind of lobby for both races to be treated as part Fae. But anyway, not important. Sylphs basically have the same stat line as elves, in terms of their ability scores. That's +2 to Dex, +2 to Intelligence, and -2 to Con. They get Electricity Resistance +5, which is really helpful because some of the nastier evocation spells do electricity damage. Now here's a fun trick. If you're doing like a Sylph Magus or something, have Electricity Resistance 5, and there's also an alternative racial trait called Storm in the Blood, which gives you fast healing if you've taken electricity damage, whether or not that damage exceeds your electricity resistance. And you may have heard of this cantrip called Jolt. I don't think it's official, but I think you might be able to talk your DM into letting you take it. Anyway, that does 1d3 electric damage. Now, because it's a cantrip, you can cast it as many times as you want. So after the fight, if you've taken some damage, just stand there casting Jolt on yourself. Another awesome alternative racial trait for a Sylph is called Breeze Kissed. It gives you a +2 to AC against ranged attacks. Now, if you want to combine this with some of the great Sylph feats, like Wings of Air, which lets you literally fly at your base movement speed, and a really cool feat called Cloud Gazer. Basically, this lets you see through clouds, mist, and anything like that, without the normal percentage miss chance. So you can just fly out of the range of melee fighters, and just chill out inside of a cloud shooting people with arrows. Sylphs also have a very neat racial spell, called Windy Escape. This spell can be cast as an immediate action, and it gives you damage resistance 10, but it's defeated by magic. But hey, if you're about to take damage, you can take 10 points off of it, which is very nice. Some classes that I really like for Sylphs are Investigator, Witch, Arcanist, and Magus. And finally, number 1, my favorite race, Kitsune. Kitsune are shape-shifting foxfolk. And in the game of Pathfinder, they are masters of my favorite school of magic, enchantment. They also get a +2 to acrobatics. Unfortunately, I'm not really fond of any of the builds or archetypes or feats for the Kitsune, with one exception, realistic likeness. This lets you assume the form of any person that you've encountered. And it's really cool, especially if you're doing like a sneaky infiltrator type character. Some classes that I think Kitsune work really well with are Sorcerer, Bard, and Rogue. And that has been my top 7 favorite Pathfinder races. Thank you for watching D6 Damage.
Benedicamus Domini.